You've heard from the Sports Lab Overtime, Sports Scene, Twigs with Jeremy St. Louis, Sports Lab with our INC students, and Jeff and Zach on Tailgate. Now, it's time to bring it all together. This is This Week in Gators Sports Overtime, your extra coverage and insider look at everything in Gator Nation.
Okay, let's do this. Let's get this thing underway. Here come the Gators.
Kicking off the final This Week in Gator Sports Overtime of the semester with Nick Abreu and Tori Kitchens, our WRUF Gators football beat reporters. This is the last show of the semester, guys. You guys have done great work all semester, and we have a lot to talk about here in our last episode. A new coach since last time we were live here, John Summerall, not Lane Kiffin, who many predicted would be the next head coach of the Gators. He was hired Sunday after Lane Kiffin was taken off of the board late last week, and Lane Kiffin, he's headed to LSU. John Summerall, of course, the coach of Tulane, who will finish out his tenure at Tulane before heading over to the Gators program, but started his tenure, I would say Monday, with his introductory press conference. And just overall, want to get reactions starting with you, Tori, in terms of your thoughts on the hire. Nice catch there. The thoughts on his hiring and the step forward in the future for the Gators moving forward.
Well, originally when reports were coming out about him potentially interviewing, I was not thrilled about the potential, but I think after that press conference on Monday, I was quite excited about it. He really won over the crowd. He won over a lot of fans with that press conference. And, you know, in the long run, I'm kind of glad we didn't get Kiffin in Gainesville because of how toxic that situation kind of is over in Baton Rouge right now in Ole Miss. So I think that Florida did get the better end of it. He really wants Florida, which he did bring up quite a lot in his press conference, and I think that's what's most important. He's someone that wants to be in Gainesville, and I think that he'll be able to do a great job.
He's in Gainesville, being paid over $7.5 million per year. When you look at his track record, Nick, in terms of what he's been able to accomplish so far in his coaching career, talked about what Scott Strickland wanted in his next coaching hire. And didn't sound like he wanted a group of five coach, but instead definitely took that direction in hiring Summerall. Do you feel he has what it takes to win at an elite program, or at least turn Florida back into an elite program here in Gainesville?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Everyone kind of expected Strickland, the Gators, to go a more direct route from someone that's had success in a Power 4 conference. And although Summerall might not have that, and you kind of might at first look be somewhat disappointed in the hiring, I think if you look at the guys that are available, that Strickland said he talked to guys in the NFL. He talked to other college football coaches that shut him down. If you look at the guys that are available, he might be the best option. I think this tells you a little bit the power of the media, but after in the past week, I've seen a lot of past coaches, greats, Nick Saban. Spurrier's probably a little biased, but Spurrier, some other coaches kind of saying that they think that Summerall could be that next guy that comes from a group of five school that could be the next great head coach. They think he has the DNA to do that. And I think, like Tori said, in his introductory press conference, he really showed at least the attitude that you kind of notice with a lot of these coaches. So he might be able to do it. It's going to be impossible to tell. We got to give him a chance. We got to see how he comes out firing at the start of next season. But I'm still going to kind of hold my tongue until I see what he can do.
Okay.
He said a lot of words. He seems like he knows the expectations of him. So we just got to see if he can deliver.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Scott Strickland a little bit. But before I do, just talking about Summerall, played linebacker at Kentucky for 4 years and returned to his alma mater as an assistant for 3 years before becoming Troy's head coach. He won consecutive Sun Belt championships in 2 seasons with the Trojans and is 19-7 in his 2 years with Tulane. But shifting gears here over to Scott Strickland. And I know when you look at the Gators fan base, Tori, in terms of how they feel about Strickland and missing out on Lane Kiffin, I know you are somewhat pleased that Kiffin is not the head coach. But when you look at the overall fan base, they were pretty upset with Strickland and how he sort of fumbled the ball with that coaching. What do you think? How do you think that impacts his legacy moving forward?
Yeah, I think that the hate from Gator Nation on Scott Strickland's kind of been there for a long time. He got that extension after the basketball national championship, which a lot of people didn't really have a reaction to, but now it's a bit more ramped up after he dropped the ball on Lane Kiffin. But he said that that's not exactly what happened in his availability on Monday. And he said that there's just a lot of narratives in the media right now that aren't true. And I think that Florida ended up in the best spot that it could have with this situation. So, you know, it's hard to agree with everything Scott Strickland does, but I don't think that this was necessarily a bad hire at all. And I think that he got a lot of help in the process as well, which they all agree that Summerall's the guy as well.
Yeah. Nick, you said, you know, you're going to kind of take a wait-and-see approach, right? You liked what he was saying, new energy in the room and the building on Monday. What are some of those things that you're looking for that will help convince you and sway you to get on Summerall's side?
Like I said, he said a lot of good things in that press conference, but a lot of those times, those introductory press conferences are kind of hard to mess up. You kind of, you're preparing for that. You kind of know the questions that they're going to come in, especially in this situation with all the Kiffin drama and stuff like that. So I think he said all the right things. The main things I think I would like him to focus on that he did mention. He said he wanted, although he's a defensive head coach, he said he wanted to bring back an offense that was dynamic, that was explosive, like the Gator football brand. And then he said, since he's a defensive head coach, he wants to make sure that this is the most feared defense in the country. So if he can do both those things, if you can get a good offense, a good defense, you win. Absolutely. So we'll see. I think the big thing that I was looking at when they released the contract is that he has a massive budget for assistant coaches. He has over $16 million to spend on assistant coaches. I think in 2024, the highest in the SEC was Georgia on assistant coaches. It was like $10 million. So it's a big budget for assistant coaches, and he knows that he's going to need help on the offensive side of the ball. He said that he's seen the grievances of Gator Nation with Billy Napier, how he kind of struggled on the offensive side of the ball. So he pretty much said he's going to get coaches on the offensive side of the ball that he thinks are championship level, that he thinks can do that job for him. And so I think that's what we're really going to see. We saw he got his defensive coordinator hired. Now I think the big one is who he gets on the offensive side of the ball, who the offensive coordinator is going to be. Yeah, I've seen some rumors of Brian Daboll. I don't know how valid that is. That feels like a reach. Yeah. But honestly, he has the money to do it. Yeah. If he can make a splash like that, I think that's what will give me confidence in his coaching regime.
Without question. Speaking of that explosive offense, and Tori, you had a story last week heading into the Florida State rivalry game last Saturday. We saw that offense put up 40 points against the Seminoles. Jaden Ball being a big reason behind that, of course, eclipsing 1,000 rushing yards for the season. Big day for him overall. But when you look at Summerall now coming in this coaching transition, it's going to be key who that offensive coordinator is, to Nick's point, and keeping some of the key offensive guys. Guy like Ball, guy like Dallas Wilson, potentially DJ Lagway. We'll see if he stays or not. When you look at some of those key signees that you look or hope to keep, do you think he has the potential? Do you think he has enough a pull to keep some of the key players and this offense intact? Because one of the things we've talked about all season long is they have the talent, we have the skill players. Do you think that it'll be the same next season?
I agree with Nick. We have to see who that OC is going to be because that's really going to determine a lot. I think that Vernell Brown has been posting a lot in response. No one else on the offensive side really has been posting as much as him, so I could argue that he will stay, which is a start. Summerall did shout out Jaden Baugh in his press conference, and I'm hoping that he'll go ahead and start building those relationships with those guys, including Baugh, because that is someone that you 100% have to keep. So, I think it's just going to depend on the hire. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it alone before that happens. They're going to have to wait and see. And obviously they have time before that January 2nd date to enter the portal.
Yeah. So it's early signing day on Wednesday. It was early signing day on Wednesday. A couple notable signings. Justin Williams, wide receiver. He's just here from Gainesville. 4-star recruit. He will sign Will Griffin as well, quarterback out of Treasure Island. CJ Bronoff, I believe, out of Orlando as well, just 2 hours away. So seems like, Nick, when you look at some of those, early signings, it seems like things are going well for Florida.
Yeah, I would say so. I think so far it's pretty impressive that he's only lost one recruit. I think kind of once Billy Napier got fired, a lot of people were like, oh, who's going to leave? Who are we going to keep? And then what's going to happen with the recruits? And I was kind of under the mindset where it's like, at this point, it doesn't even matter who leaves, who comes in. It's a new regime. You're gonna have people that are changing their mind. You're gonna have other people that might want to come here that didn't want to come here before. So it's just natural turnover. But the fact that he's been able to maintain all these players to sign, except for that one running back who's not even top 200 in this class. Mm-hmm. It says a lot about Summerall. It says a lot about the Gator football brand. And I think it gives me some confidence because a lot of people were questioning the Gator football brand after that Billy Napier era and whether it still holds up to the weight that it used to. And I think after Wednesday, we've seen that it still holds up, and John Summerall is going to try to maintain that brand as much as he can.
All right. Now, I want to shift to Lane Kiffin. Now, I know he didn't end up here in Gainesville, but I think the conversation around Lane Kiffin is an important one in terms of college football coaches leaving midseason. You look at Ole Miss in the season that they've had, by far one of the best teams that they've ever had. They have an opportunity to win the national championship. Ole Miss said, "You're gone." They said they closed the door on him. They said you can't coach this team in the college football playoff. I'm just curious. I want to hear from both you, Nick, and then also you as well, Tori. What side do you take on this? Do you take the side of Lane Kiffin and just having the ability to choose and to leave midseason for a new opportunity, for a better opportunity, more money? Is there a certain level of loyalty that Lane Kiffin should have had to Ole Miss to finish this season out? And was Ole Miss in the right or wrong? Starting with you, Nick.
I blame college football in general.
Yeah.
A lot of people have talked about this. Actually, Summerall talked about it a little bit in his press conference too. Just the way that they have the kind of head coaching cycle is just strange in general. Like the fact that there's no set in stone season, so that Lane Kiffin, for example, could finish out his tenure with Ole Miss before recruits start signing, so that he doesn't lose anything, and if he wants to take a better job after that. Like if that season was in place for college football, say he finishes out the season with Ole Miss, then he gets the LSU job and doesn't lose any transfers because of it, I think that'd be the best of both worlds, but obviously it doesn't exist. If I were to pick a side, I think I'm more on Ole Miss's side.
Okay.
Just because I feel like the demands that Kiffin was making is a little bit much. Like, yeah, if the team wants you to coach, then go ahead and coach. But I also understand why they wouldn't want him to coach. I mean,
yeah,
he's already the coach of another team. You're giving him an extra month.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to an SEC rival as well.
Right.
So you're giving him an extra month to kind of convince these players, convince this coaching staff to come with him. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't see it. I can see the argument that it's like, oh, his last hurrah with Ole Miss. He's built this team. You want him to let him finish it out.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's going to be to the detriment of Ole Miss. Like they need time to be able to build without him, and if they let him continue on, it's going to be a struggle for them if they get to the end of the college football playoffs and they're still floundering for any sort of stability.
Yeah. Tori, Lane Kiffin, right or wrong? Ole Miss, right or wrong?
I'm very much on the side of Ole Miss. I think the situation is so messy. It's crazy. I was kind of keeping track of it all over the weekend, and it was honestly making my stomach hurt how messy it was. There's just so much going on, but it's also like Kiffin's been caught in quite a few lies already, and he said that in his original statement that his players wanted him to stay. Well, they just said on Tuesday that that was absolutely not true. And if you were watching the Egg Bowl, you also saw when Deuce Alexander got that 88-yard touchdown, he didn't even want to talk to Kiffin after it. It was pretty evident that that statement was false from the get-go. Those players did confirm it on Tuesday. Yeah. And so I just think that it was just such a bad situation all around. Yeah. And I think Ole Miss, they definitely still have their spirits high, which is good, I guess, because you're going into the college football playoff with a brand new coach who's already not even an interim, was immediately upgraded, which is pretty cool, but we don't know how that's going to turn out. So I think that it's just going to be a waiting game to see that part, but Ole Miss definitely is right in the situation.
Yeah. I want to put a bow on this season. We're joined by Nick Abreu and Tori Kitchens, our WRUF beat reporter, also Hunter DeLauder as well, who also helped out with beat coverage. You all have done an excellent job all season long in covering this Gators season, and boy, has it been a season. From even before the first kickoff to where we are now, where the Gators aren't even bowl eligible. And I want to put a bow on this and really sum up, what are the key takeaways from this season, from everything from the USF loss, right? Well, even before then, the high expectations, the Heisman Trophy talk around DJ Lagway, the opportunity to potentially compete for a national championship, to that USF loss here in Gainesville, to the eventual firing of Billy Napier, the Lane Kiffin saga as well, and now the John Summerall era. What are your takeaways in covering this team? What do you think are the key takeaways for the Gators? Starting with you, Tori.
I think that just seeing how this team kind of bonded together, even through all the adversity, is pretty cool and something that is definitely a takeaway. They all really backed Napier before that whole situation kind of ended, and they all backed Billy Gonzalez when he had the opportunity to lead this program. It seemed that morale was low at some point, but definitely ended on a high note against Florida State. They stayed together through it all. And, all the talk at the beginning of the season, looking back at it, is kind of funny to hear now with how far Florida's come and how different it's been. Yeah. But, that doesn't mean that something like that can't happen in the years to come. I think that John Summerall has the opportunity to kind of take those expectations that were placed on Florida and make it better next year, because this program's probably not going to have the best expectations going into next season with a brand new coaching staff, probably a bunch of new players as well. So I just think that they have an opportunity next year to really prove themselves for what they couldn't do this season.
Nick, what do you think the story of the season is for the Gators?
Yeah, I think that's a strong argument. To me, I'd kind of go on a similar route. I think, like we've kind of said all year, I think especially we saw this in the Florida State game. The talent for the most part is there. They just need someone to harness it, and Billy Napier wasn't that guy. Billy Gonzalez obviously is not that guy. So hopefully John Summerall and whoever he brings in to help him will be those people, because we have stars on this team. Jaden Ball is a star. He's got to be. Yeah, Summerall said in his press conference, he's like, I watched that game and my takeaway was I would have given him the ball 10 more times, which makes sense. I mean, the guy had 38 carries and was still efficient on the ground. So he's a star. Yeah. Miles Graham is a star. There are stars on this team.
Yeah.
It's still up in the air whether DJ Lagway is a star or not, but we'll figure that out. Yeah. And I think overall, Summerall doesn't need to change too much. Obviously, there's going to be turnaround. He's going to get some guys leaving. He's going to want to bring in some of his own guys. But I think there's not too much of a leap from this season to being ranked in the next couple seasons at the end of the year.
Which brings me to my next question. How far away are the Gators from national prominence, from winning another national championship. We're almost approaching 2 decades now here in a couple years now. Beginning a new era, how far away are the Gators from competing for a national championship?
Yeah, I think not that far away. Like I said, I think it could be done in a couple years. Summerall has turned around, although group of 5 teams in 1 year. I mean, look at he's made it to the conference championship almost every year as a head coach. So we'll see if he can do it in the SEC. I think he has a solid chance at least getting a winning season next year. I think he has the roster to do it. I think from what I've seen, he has the recruiting chops to do it. So I think maybe you get a winning season like a 7-5 next year, and then you kind of are looking to make that jump in the second or third season. I think that in those seasons you could be on the border of college football playoff appearance.
Tori, Nick predicting that the Gators will be bowl eligible. How about you?
Yeah, I think that bowl eligibility will happen next year. I think something that made me really excited about Summerall was how not boring that press conference was, because that's kind of what it's been for the past couple of years. So I think that you just kind of have to turn around a bad season to and I think that he has the personality to be able to do that and just to try to lead the team to that opportunity. I'm not so sure about like national championship contention. I will need to see a season before I can predict that confidently. But I think Florida's usually bowl eligible. This is just one of those off years again. But I think that he definitely will be able to do that next year. I'll say that confidently.
Okay. All right. Wrapping up here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. Guys, any final thoughts on this season? Again, you guys have had great coverage all season long, worked extremely hard. Be sure to check out all their work on WRUF.com. But before we break for winter break and then come back and recharge for next semester, any final thoughts on the Gators football season?
Yeah, I think that, like I said before, they were really close together, which was cool to cover. To be able to kind of hear the optimism of the players throughout the whole season was something that I enjoyed looking into. I also really enjoyed looking into kind of the recruiting aspect as well, because that was something I covered right after Billy Napier was fired and have been keeping track of this week. And I think that the future's bright, and that's something that Gator Nation should be excited for, and we'll see how next season goes.
Absolutely. Nick, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, although it was a very much downward trajectory from the beginning of the season, like you said, it's fun to cover. I mean, when you have that much noise around a team, it makes it easy, whether it's positive or negative. So it definitely was fun. And also, before we leave, I do want to give like somewhat of a disclaimer on this Summerall hire. I think it's a good hire. I think it ended up being a good hire.
Yeah.
But also, I still think it's a lot of risk that maybe Strickland can or may not be able to afford. So we'll see how it goes. If Summerall comes in and he finds a way not to have success, it could be a long road of waiting for Gator fans from then on. So
could get ugly, huh?
I'm being
high risk, high reward.
Yeah, I'm being positive. I see the vision. I see the vision for the high reward, which is why I'm there with you guys.
Yeah.
But it's still possible it could go the opposite way. I mean, Billy Napier had similar records at Louisiana, so anything could happen.
Well, it's been a high reward working with you guys this semester. Again, great coverage all semester long. We're back here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime, our last episode of the semester. We are joined by our AP Top 25 team, Jake Hoffman, Morgan Vasquez. Guys, it's that time of year. We're talking about championship week. We're also talking about college football playoff and who could potentially make it in to compete for a national championship. Jake, I'll start with you as you've been breaking down potential scenarios for us all season long in terms of who could potentially compete for that national title. Where does everything stand as it currently shakes out right now?
I mean, it's championship week, one of the most fun weeks in college football. You get to see some of the best programs go head-to-head. Everything's at stake. Right now, it looked like the top four was kind of locked in, but after Texas A&M fell to Texas last week, it's looking a little bit different. Texas A&M dropped to number 7. Georgia slid up to number 3, and the Texas Tech Raiders hold that number 4 spot. So now the question is, with these championship games, if Georgia loses, does that affect their playoff case? Or if Texas Tech loses to BYU, BYU automatically gets in. Does that mean Texas Tech drops completely out of the top 12?
Yeah.
There's a lot of what-ifs, which always makes this such a fun week. It's a hot topic of debate, but everything's really up to fate at this point for some teams, like Miami and Notre Dame. They both have no games left on the season. Notre Dame is currently sitting at number 10, but there's the big argument of Miami and Notre Dame both have 2 losses, but Miami beat Notre Dame. So if you're looking at the head-to-head, should Miami be in over Notre Dame? Do you look at the side of Notre Dame lost to Miami and A&M and haven't lost since? Those are 2 losses against very good teams. So it's definitely going to depend on championship week, but you have these teams like Miami and Notre Dame where everything is really up to fate for them at this point.
You think about Texas A&M, sort of they're falling off, or falling, I guess, to number 7 after their first loss of the season. That paved the way for Georgia to make the SEC title game against Alabama. What are your thoughts on Texas A&M going into the college football playoff? Because when you look at the way the Aggies played all season long, by far one of the favorite teams to compete for that national championship, how do you think they will be able to get back on track?
Yeah, I definitely still like Texas A&M. We know they have resilience. They were down 30-3 in a game at half and were able to crawl all the way back. Their only loss was in Austin against Texas. Texas has 3 losses, but we know that this Texas team has been a completely different roster the second half of the season than in the first.
Yeah.
They've looked way better, but Texas A&M, they're in a safe spot. They're likely not going to jump up to the bye even with a Georgia loss, but they're in that bubble with teams like Oregon, and you got Oregon at the 5, and then you got Oklahoma, who they're kind of in that safe spot where it's like they're not going to get a bye, but they've already made their case. Those are teams that are going to be in the playoff no matter what happens this week.
Yeah.
So I still like Texas A&M. It's just a question of, are they going to get that rematch against Notre Dame where they won 41-40 earlier in the season? Or could it be Miami? Does Vanderbilt or Texas sneak in?
Yeah.
There's a lot to watch out for after this week.
Without question. The College Football Playoff Committee certainly going to earn their money as they make the final selections coming up. Switching the ball over to Morgan. Morgan, let's talk a little bit about some of the what-ifs. Jake mentioned some of the teams that are on the brink. You look at Miami, Texas, BYU. Sort of what do you think needs to happen? And if you could make a prediction, do any of these teams on the brink actually make it into the final bracket?
Well, gosh, teams are putting up a real fight. You saw Vanderbilt, their beat down of Tennessee. Gator fans love to see it, I'm sure. But you saw the memo that their team put out on X making their case of why they should make the playoffs over other 10-2 teams like Miami, like even Alabama or Oklahoma or Notre Dame. Those are all 10-2 teams.
Yeah.
And they really want that spot. I do think a BYU win in the Big 12 championships might knock Texas Tech completely out of the bracket. And does that open up space for Vanderbilt or even for Miami? Because that Miami going in might be the only way that an ACC team makes it in. If Duke wins the ACC championships, I just think that there's not a universe in which the College Football Playoff Committee lets Duke into the bracket. And that would mean no ACC teams unless Miami finds a way to sneak it in there. And I don't think that it's in Miami's hands. I think it's in the results of the Big 12 championships.
Yeah, we'll have to certainly see. I think one of the things that certainly Gator fans are going to keep their eyes on is the Tulane game. What a Tulane win could mean tomorrow night. Of course, John Summerall being announced as the Gators' next head coach. Sort of how do you see that game playing out for Tulane?
Well, gosh, I mean, it would mean a lot to Gator fans to have the Tulane team go far and say, wow, this coach, he is somebody. He's somebody who knows how to win. He's somebody who knows how to get to the playoffs. And in the off chance that Tulane loses this game, then they will likely not go to the bracket. But I also don't think that North Texas will. I think that there is something to be said for name recognition, which North Texas doesn't have. I think Miami or Vanderbilt would go ahead of North Texas in that situation with an at-large bid.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what that means.
Another game, or another team, I should say, that Gators fans have their eyes on. I don't know if they are looking at them in the same way that they're looking at Tulane, but USF. Potentially just been missing the cutoff for their AC championship. Sort of your take there.
Well, USF, this was one of their best seasons that they ever had. They were really, probably for the first 8 weeks of the season, they seemed like they might be the ACC lock the group of 5 lock for the playoff bracket. And with their coach leaving, that creates a really deep hole for them. And I think if the ACC championships were USF and Tulane, that would be probably a big game for Gator fans to see their new coach going in and beating a team that came into the swamp, and it was an embarrassing loss for us.
Yeah, without question. All right, guys, let's get to it. The championship week predictions. We'll keep the ball with you, Morgan.
Yeah.
Georgia, Alabama, SEC. Alabama 2.5-point underdogs, and Atlanta. Who's your pick?
I really want to take Alabama. Jake has been all over Alabama, and this time I'm going to have to agree with him. I would hate to see Georgia win another SEC championship. And I'm going to go for the slight underdogs here.
All right. Jake, how about you?
Like Morgan said, I'm going to take Alabama. They beat Georgia earlier in the season. They've had Georgia's number. I'm pretty sure they've won 9 or 10 of the last 11 matchups against the Bulldogs. Gunnar Stockton, I love Gunnar. I always say Gunnar's got grit, but he hasn't really shown it the last couple of weeks. A very sluggish win against Georgia Tech, where he threw right around 100 passing yards. The ground game was very dominant, which was a positive sign. But that Georgia offense, I just don't think they're going to be able to hang in there with Alabama's offense. And even on the defensive side, Georgia's got it, but will that defense be enough? I don't think so.
All right. You heard it. 2 picks for Alabama. Next game, Big Ten, Ohio State, Indiana. Who you got, Jake?
I got to take Ohio State. I love Fernando Mendoza and the way he talks, how he's willing to die out there for his team. Mendoza, I just don't think he's seen a team like Ohio State. There's a reason they've been number 1 since they beat Texas in week 1. They're undefeated just like Indiana, but nothing stopped them. That defense, you got guys like Caleb Downs, you got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate on offense. I don't think the Hoosiers are going to be able to hang. I'm going to take Ohio State.
All right. Morgan, Jake doesn't think the Hoosiers can hang. What do you think?
I have to disagree with him there. Indiana is my favorite for the Natty.
Oh, wow.
Maybe this is controversial. I think Ohio State is a little bit of a cupcake.
Oh.
And I love Mendoza. Mendoza's Columbus boy. That's right down the street from my hometown. I know all my friends are rooting for him. We're all pulling for our hometown boy.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to go with Indiana.
All right. Next game, Tulane, North Texas. We talked about it earlier. Who you got, Morgan?
John Sumrall, he's our new guy, and I'm always going to pull for him. So Tulane, I think, is going to pull this one out and head into the bracket.
All right, Jake, your pick.
I'm also going to go Tulane, but I'd say that's probably my most hesitant pick. North Texas really does have an electrifying offense, and the question is, will the Green Wave be able to stop them? The offense, we know what they could do, but the defense has looked a little bit lackluster. They've been allowing a lot of points. I'm going to go Tulane, but I think this is going to be one of the best games of the week.
All right, Big 12, Texas Tech, BYU. Who we got?
I'm going to go with the Red Raiders. Last time these teams met, I liked BU going in, but Texas Tech just absolutely demolished them. I think it's a similar situation. BYU's got everything on the line. Texas Tech kind of does too, because if they lose, they could make the playoff, but nothing's a guarantee in the 12-team playoff format. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech.
Morgan, take us home.
Cougars are fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
And, they did get destroyed earlier this season by Texas Tech. And who wants to have that happen again? No, I think that they're going to change their game plan, and I do think that it would throw the bracket into a little bit of chaos, and I want to see it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put you guys on the spot here since this is the last episode of This Week in Gators Sports Overtime for the semester. Of course, we'll be back in the spring, but I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Pick your national champion. If you could today, pick your national champion. Start with you, Morgan.
Like I said, I really like this Indiana team. I think it would be really, really special for the Hoosiers to take this one home. If not them, probably Marcel Reed and the Aggies.
Okay.
Those are my
Texas
top two.
A&M.
Yeah.
Texas A&M. All right. Jake?
I like the A&M pick. I could see it too. I'm big on Ohio State, but I think it's very hard to go back-to-back, especially in this time period.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Alabama.
All right.
I've been riding with them all season. I really think this is a weak quarterback class overall. But when you look at college football quarterbacks, I really think Ty Simpson in a couple years, we're going to look back and say that in 2025, he was the best quarterback that came out of that year.
All right.
I know he's young, but he's felt the pressure. Alabama's had the hardest schedule on the season. I think they're prepared. They stack up against every team in college football, in my opinion. I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide to bring it back home.
All right, Jake going with the Tide there, and that does it for the segment. And I just want to thank you both, Jake and Morgan, for joining us here on This Week in Gators Sports. Great work all semester long and great coverage. Be sure to check out all of their work from the semester, and also next semester, Morgan, you're going to be covering women's basketball. Is that right?
Yep, I'm super excited.
Jake is going to be in Madrid for his study abroad program. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
And so definitely wish you safe travels there. But again, guys, great work. Thank you all for coming on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime, we're joined by one of our NFL beat reporters, Dalton Salines. It's been a couple weeks, Dalton. We've had quite a few NFL games, and when you look at the picks right now, I would say Riley's dominating, to put it lightly. Riley's dominating. What is happening and what has happened over these past couple weeks, Dalton?
Listen, last week I went 3 for 3, but Riley's just been right there with me. Every time I slip up, she just takes advantage of it. She's taken a 2-game lead. She's up 2 games on me. It's incredibly unfortunate. I clawed my way all the way back, and now we're running out of time for me to get the lead back. It's not going to come this week. I can give you that insight before we get to picks, but she's been able to pull out ahead of me. I'm fortunate she's not here because she'd be letting me hear it, but she's pulled out ahead of me 2 games.
Yeah, unfortunately, Riley Orovitz, our other NFL beat reporter for WRUF, unable to join us today, but we do have Dalton to break down the latest. Start with the power rankings. The power rankings, when you look at all the Florida teams, all 3 of them moved up this week. Dalton, tell us what went into this week's rankings.
Yeah, this week all 3 moved up, all 3 won. The one I want to highlight is Jacksonville. All of a sudden, they're leading the AFC South. Indianapolis had been way up on them, but Jacksonville's rattled off wins. They climb up into the lead for the AFC South. Tampa Bay also got back to their winning ways. Obviously, we talked a lot about their struggles, but picked up a big win this past week, and now they have a game on the Carolina Panthers in the NFC South. And then listen, we keep joking about the Dolphins winning out, but they haven't lost since we said it. It's still technically in the cards, and with the Jets this week, that could really continue.
Without question. I mean, I think when you look at all 3 of these teams and just a lot happening with each and every franchise, what is the biggest thing that stands out to you?
I think that really the resilience of this Jacksonville team has been the thing that stood out to me. The fact that they are missing Brian Thomas Jr., lost Travis Hunter for the season, and really talent-wise don't necessarily stack up with the Colts and Texans, and yet they're finding ways to win football games. The biggest test is going to be their 2 matchups with the Colts they still have left, but the fact that they've been able to battle and are 8-4 is really impressive to see. In Tampa Bay, it's just how much they rely on that offense. When they were missing people on offense, they haven't been able to win the games against the top-tier competition. It worries me for the playoffs, the fact that the defense hasn't shown that it can get stops against good teams. That scares me. And with Miami, it's that Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane can really carry this team, and that the defense can do enough to get wins. I mean, Tua is still the same quarterback he's always been, but Jalen Waddle's showing he can be a true wide receiver 1, which is a huge relief to Dolphins fans that maybe Miami can move on from Tyreek Hill after this season. And then Devon Achane's looking like one of the best running backs in football, and the defense is doing just enough to get them by. These are very positive signs for next year for Miami in what's going to continue to be a very competitive AFC East.
Without question. Speaking of next year, Mike McDaniel sort of making a case to save his job. Week after week, we talked about here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime how Mike McDaniel should be fired. Of course, they got rid of the GM earlier this season, but Mike McDaniel still the coach of the Dolphins.
I think he keeps his job. I think the offense is showing enough, and that's where he hangs his hat on. If they can continue to win games, and if maybe just 2 more wins the rest of the way, I don't expect them to win out by any means, but if they can win 2 more games the rest of the way, I would expect them to keep Mike McDaniel and potentially keep Tua. Remember, winning these games mean their draft pick is going to be lower. They're not going to be in the running for one of those top quarterbacks in next year's draft. We might see Tua and McDaniel both come back next year, which I'm assuming is not going to be very exciting for Dolphins fans, but they're showing just enough to keep their jobs.
Yeah, without question. I mean, especially when you look at how the season started, to be in this position now, heading into next season. Don, let's switch over to fantasy sports a little bit. Let's talk about which Florida player is going to be the fantasy playoff MVP in your eyes.
I'm going to say Jacoby Myers. So he has played very well, and I have spoken very highly of him nonstop. People are going to think he's one of my favorite players by the way I talk about him, but look at the way he's been performing in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He was over 20 points last week. He gets the Colts twice. Their pass defense has gotten worse with Sauce Gardner going down with an Achilles injury. They said it's not torn, but it is strained, so he's going to miss next week's game. He's got decent matchups the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Lawrence trusts him heavily. I think Myers is a guy that we're going to look at the end. I don't think he'll be the highest scoring performer, but I think he will be the most valuable on your fantasy team.
And when you look at Jacoby Myers so far this season, just looking at his stats, 51 receptions, close to 600 yards, 2 touchdowns overall, really getting the job done. You talk about Trevor Lawrence, being able to find him as well. That chemistry seems to be developing as time goes on. So Myers, he's going to be your MVP.
He's going to be the MVP. I just think Devon Achane would have been a cop-out answer here. He's just way better than everyone else. There's too many questions with health in Tampa Bay to go with any of them. I like Myers to be the most consistent performer through the playoffs.
Now, if the season were to end today, what would you say would be your Super Bowl prediction?
So coming out of the AFC, I like the Buffalo Bills. You could have read about it this week in my power rankings where I talked about best bets. I like them to come out of the AFC.
Okay.
The top 2 teams are the Patriots and the Broncos, and there's not a lot of playoff experience there for those quarterbacks. Josh Allen has been through the playoffs, hasn't necessarily had the success you'd want to see, but he knows what it takes to play in the playoffs and find success. The teams that have given him trouble, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, they're not looking like they're not even going to make the playoffs. So let's look to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to represent the AFC.
Okay.
In the NFC, I like the Seattle Seahawks. They're playing in one of the hardest divisions in football, getting matched up with the Rams and the 49ers in the NFC West. I like the Seahawks to come out of the NFC. I don't think the Bucs are competitive enough. The NFC North, the Lions and Packers are both great teams. I think the Bears are a little overrated. I like the Seahawks to beat one of them on their path. The Eagles were there last year. I don't think they make it back. I've got Bills versus Seahawks, and I'm taking Buffalo. I say Josh Allen's going to break the curse in Buffalo, and they're going to get their Super Bowl this year.
Interesting, because I was waiting to hear the Eagles and all of your analysis there.
Yeah.
And it came there at the end, but you don't think that they are going to repeat as champions. Just looking at the odds, this is based on FanDuel. Right now, currently, the Rams are favored to win the Super Bowl, followed by the Seahawks, which is one of your favorites as well, Packers, Eagles, the 4th team, and then the Bills and Patriots round out those top teams. But not much faith in the Eagles here this season.
I think that their identity comes in the ground game. The offensive line has taken a step back, and the call it complaining of A.J. Brown has led to them throwing the football more. And while that is right now showing results, and they're finding a little bit of success with that, they showed in the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving that they can't necessarily sustain that for an entire game. And if the line isn't holding up for Saquon Barkley, I don't think the Eagles have enough talent on their defense to make up for it in a playoff game.
Yeah.
I expect them to probably win a game or two. I would not be surprised if they were in the NFC Championship, but I think Seattle, with a high-powered offense, will be able to outscore Philadelphia in a shootout, who isn't really sticking to their identity on the ground, slowing the game down.
Wow. Interesting. I mean, another NFC team up there is also Packers as well. Packers, I mean, of course, they have the addition of Micah Parsons and third team on the favorites list. Do you think they have a chance?
I don't, for the reason of their offense is very inconsistent. We talked about it preseason. A lot of people were talking about it. Who's the number 1 wide receiver on this team? They have a lot of pass-catching options, but not really a true wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
I think that's what separates Seattle is Jackson Smith and Jigba is the clear wide receiver 1 there, and they have other offensive weapons. They have a dual-threat backfield. Is Josh Jacobs going to be healthy for the playoffs? And can the pass rush beyond Micah Parsons generate pressure against any of the top teams? My prediction right now, obviously the playoff bracket hasn't been set. Philadelphia knocks Green Bay out of the playoffs
Okay.
and then gets knocked out by Seattle.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. At least you have the Eagles going,
Yes.
at least to that NFC Championship game. Moving on, want some more predictions? Your picks
Yes.
for this week
Yes.
and Week 14.
Yep, so I have my picks and Riley's picks. So
Okay.
in the Dolphins game, we have the Dolphins winning 35-10. Riley's got them 24-10.
All right.
It's against the Jets. The Jets aren't a good football team. Tyrod Taylor will be starting. I expect the Dolphins to get a lot of pressure on him. He's not the same mobility-wise Justin Fields is. I believe the Dolphins will be able to walk out with a clear victory.
Okay.
Another pick we have the same. The Buccaneers playing the Saints. The Saints are not a good football team. The Buccaneers will continue their winning ways, pick up a huge victory. I have the Bucs 42-10. I think they can do whatever they want offensively against the Saints defense. Riley has them 28-10. Neither of us expect the Saints offense to get anything going. Now, we do have a different pick in the Colts-Jaguars game. Riley is going with the Colts 28-17. I have the Jaguars 24-21. I think Jacksonville has shown me enough. Indianapolis is looking really shaky right now after a very hot start. I don't think they have what it takes to beat Jacksonville right now. I think the Jaguars win this game and give themselves the inside track to win the AFC South.
All right, some pretty big picks there. Wink, wink. You might have the Jets beating the Dolphins for Riley. I don't know, so you can catch up in those standings on the picks. Of course, we don't do that. We don't cheat
No,
here.
never,
on
never.
This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. Now moving on to the hot takes for Week 14. Your hot take.
I'm going to say the Jaguars' defense holds Jonathan Taylor below 75 yards rushing. I don't want this to happen because Jonathan Taylor is carrying my fantasy team, but he's been slowing down a little bit. I believe Jacksonville is going to sell out to stop the run. I think they're going to give it all they can, make Daniel Jones beat them through the air, especially with his leg injury he suffered 2 weeks ago, played through it against Houston admirably, played really well, but I think they're going to try to do the same thing the Texans did and make Daniel Jones beat them. They're going to do all they can to take Jonathan Taylor out of the game, and I say they hold him below 75 yards rushing.
We'll see. Last time out, I think he had 85 yards, and
Yes,
so you're
yes.
predicting that
A little lower.
he'll
Against a much
go-
better defense, too, so we'll see if they can do it. If they can do
we'll
it.
see. That is, of course, Dalton Salem joining us here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. Dalton, I want to thank you for all your work this semester. This is the last episode here, and I appreciate not only your writing, but also coming on and giving us your takes, your predictions as well. I also want to thank Riley. The WRUF NFLB team has done an excellent job all semester long, and you're coming back for more. Is that right?
Yes. Next semester I'll be doing the NBA.
All right.
So I'll have basketball next semester. A little bit more in my wheelhouse, actually, so we'll see if I can make some better picks.
All right, so some more great coverage. And also, we have to mention your championship, two-time champion,
Yes.
MVP, one time, before we wrap up here. Tell us more.
Yeah, intramural championships, co-ed was named the MVP at the quarterback position, and then in men's, a double overtime victory, finished with 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, including one in overtime. So the teams were able to come out with 2 championships in intramural flag football. It was a blast, got to play in the swamp, and we're going to try and run it back next year.
All right, give it up to Dalton Salins. He doesn't just talk football. He actually plays it and dominates it. Two-time champion, Dalton Salins. Thank you so much for joining us here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. Back here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime, the last episode of the semester, and our last time meeting with our volleyball beat reporters, Charlie Jones, Jelianis Ramos, here on Twigs OT. I want to thank you guys for all your hard work all semester long. Guys, let's put a bow on it. We're now in the postseason. After the SEC tournament, the Gators fell in the quarterfinals. We'll start there before we get into the NCAA tournament and what the Gators face next. So break it down. What happened with the Gators in the quarterfinals? Starting with you, Jelianis.
Yeah, well, I just want to start by saying what a season. What a season it has been for this Gator volleyball team. A young team with a brand new head coach. A lot of question marks surrounded this team where they started. And I think, with the ups and downs going into this SEC tournament, I predicted that Kentucky was going to win, and they did. And so when Florida won that first match against Alabama, I thought it was a strong start. I thought that having that matchup would set them well going into possibly facing Tennessee. And so they came in strong. That first set against Tennessee was strong. They were in command. They had a good flow on the offense, but it's just about that momentum. They just cannot carry it on. And so they lose in 4 sets to Tennessee. And I think it was a good matchup now because they had some time off to kind of look back into and see how can we strengthen these weaknesses that we have to help us into this NCAA tournament. So I think overall it's just about a teaching moment and a learning lesson for them and just seeing how they can move forward and maximize this opportunity in the playoffs.
Charlie, your thoughts, your takeaways from their SEC tournament performance.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having us this semester. It's been a blast talking some Gators volleyball. What was not a blast was the Gators exiting in the round of 8 of the SEC tournament, but there are some bright spots, right? It's the first tournament in 20 years, so it's cool getting to be a part of that opportunity. Yeah. And when they beat Alabama, there was something that everyone should have taken a look at. 25-6 in set 2, the Gators won. Set 2 has been an issue for Florida all year. They, I think they were 500 in set 2s between all their matches. It didn't prove to be the same way against Tennessee. Came out with that strong start in set 1, couldn't keep it going in set 2. But that set 2 win over Alabama gave me a little bit of a hope going into the NCAA tournament, right? Some of the issues that this team has had throughout regular season play, especially into SEC play, really plagued them the whole way through. They kind of went away against Alabama. Hopefully they can return to that form in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But to get one win in the SEC tournament, come back, rest up, and be ready for the big dance is a massive thing. I think the team has a little bit of momentum, and can hold their heads high with one win in the SEC tournament.
Let's talk about the NCAA tournament now, shifting gears, and we'll keep the ball with you, Charlie. Break it down for us as the Gators face Rice in their first round matchup.
Yeah, Rice is no team to snide away from, to overlook. Gators actually going into the NCAA tournament were predicted to be the 8th seed in any of the quadrants. A little bit of a shock in the selection committee deciding to not give them a seed and instead not even have them face the 8th seed, have them face the 7th seed Rice in the Pitt quadrant. So a little bit of a shakeup there. But when you're looking at the seeding, you have to understand Florida's 15 and 11. You can't really bump them up too high with that record, and especially their performance in SEC play. As for Rice, this is a very, very strong team coming out of a conference that's not necessarily known to be a powerhouse in the AAC. Rice, however, is 21-9 on the season, 15-1 in conference play. A lone loss earlier on in the season. They were the number 1 seed into the AAC tournament, dominated all the way up until the final, lost to Tulsa in the final, who also made the tournament on an automatic qualifier. So 2 teams for the AAC this year. But Rice has been a runaway train the whole year. Some really, really, really strong wins against USF, who's been a strong team in that conference, UTSA, who's been pretty decent as well. So they set up to maybe derail Florida's hopes of an upset bid, right? Rice has some really strong, tall players who can disrupt the Gators' offensive attack. If they can keep doing what they've been doing against AAC talent all year, translate that against a Power 4 team, you could see Rice move on, but don't overlook Florida's chances at an upset.
Certainly don't want to overlook Florida. That game is Friday at 5 p.m. Shifting the ball to Jellianis. Jellianis, break down Rice for us. What are the keys for the Gators to pull out a victory?
Absolutely. Before I hit the keys, I want to hit 2 key points right now. This is the first time since 2020 that the Gators volleyball would not be hosting the first and second round. And I think that is huge because having your crowd, your home crowd cheering you on, especially in the first 2 rounds, is always essential. Jordan Bird was actually in the Thighs show earlier this week, and she made a comment saying that she thinks the team plays better on the road. I personally find that interesting because the team is 6-6 on the road and they're 7-3 at home. So that's something to keep in mind of, especially now going away to Dallas. And maybe there'll be some Gator fans, but you don't have those rowdy reptiles like you would in the O'Connell Center. So I think it's something to look at. Last time UF played Rice was in 1996. We have the record all-time 7-1. So I think heading into the matchup, it's a good matchup for the Florida Gators. I think we'll come out on top. I think the Three Kings would be just, can you start hot? You know, get that first set, get those jitters out for those, you know, first-time players that are playing the NCAA tournament. 2, can you keep that momentum going after getting that first set? It is crucial, like Charlie said, to win that second set. Yeah. And 3rd, can you capitalize and minimize your mistakes? Can you go out there and play clean ball, a well-rounded game in the service line, and moving the ball offensively to the outside, to the middles? And I think with the experience that Stuckey has, I think she's going to get that done, and the Gators will get the win against Rice.
All right. Jelliana's picking a Gators win. If the Gators were to win, of course, they play the winner of SMU and Central Arkansas. Expecting SMU to win that, barring any upset there. And so looking ahead, let's look at the prediction. How far can the Gators go in the NCAA tournament? Jelliana, we'll keep the ball with you.
I think, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we don't make it past round 2. I think when, you know, and I'm expecting to get that win against Rice, facing SMU at home, like at SMU, is going to be tough. This has been a team who is currently in a 9-game winning streak, and they've shown on and off that they can win, they can beat top 25 teams, and I think we're just going to fall short. I think it will show us a lot of good stuff that we have coming back next year. But, yeah, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, and I would say we will lose in round 2.
Charlie, do you agree?
You know what? In a season of ups and downs, I am trending up on the Gators. I'm buying all the stock.
I love it.
And I'm going to be the person who brings the optimism right now.
I love it.
I think a win over Rice is definitely feasible. I'm sticking with Jelliana's prediction.
Okay.
I think they'll handle Rice. I would even say 3-1. Or, if we're getting a little bit crazy, a sweep.
Okay.
Rice is strong, but they haven't had much Power 4 experience this year, right? 16 of their matches coming against AAC talent. When you bump that up to a Power 4 SEC team like Florida, it's a whole different game, right? Florida played USF. They beat them handily 3-1. There's nothing to say that they couldn't do the same to Rice. So I'm moving Florida to the round of 32. Then we're predicting a face-off with SMU. Strong team, no doubt. One of the best teams in the tournament. They're a number 2 seed for a reason.
Right.
Playing a strong conference in the ACC. But they've had some shaky starts, right? Earlier on in the season, they tried to find their footing. They were dropping sets to inferior opponents, and that issue didn't really fix itself the way through, right? They played 2 SEC teams, split that against a win against Texas A&M, and a loss against Kentucky. So 2 high-profile SEC teams. That gives you a little bit of a knowledge basis to know what they can do. But what people are really sleeping on is what the Gators can do on the other side of the net, right? Jayla August followed up a SEC Freshman of the Year season last year with just as good of a season this year, making all SEC first team. Her issues at the service line, we can overlook them. We can just kind of brush that to the side. What she was able to do in the blocking and attacking end of the game makes her so versatile on offense and defense that you saw it in the second match of the year against Pitt, right? Another ACC team, high profile, who's the number 1 seed in this quadrant. She shut them down from the sides, from the middle, attacking, defending. She was everywhere. You could see Florida's middles really get involved against SMU, start to disrupt things. And how will the Mustangs respond? I don't really know. The other factor, home crowd for SMU, right? We're in Dallas. That's an easy travel for them. They're basically Dallas University. I think the Gators faithful will show out in Dallas. I think the Gators will show up, and you will see an upset bid. I'm calling it right here. I'm calling it right here. Hot take. Upset bid to the round of 16. Let's get the Gators moving on.
I love it. I love it. And, of course, if Florida does upset SMU, looking further down the bracket, you have Baylor, Purdue potentially coming out of the lower bracket. So whoever comes out of that Baylor-Purdue matchup, the Gators will face next if Charlie's prediction is correct. Before we wrap up here, and I want to thank, we're joined by Charlie Jones and Jelianis Ramos here. And before we close out our final segment of the semester, I want you guys to put a bow on the season. And while, yes, the Gators still have a game upcoming Friday in the NCAA tournament, everything that the Gators have gone through, Charlie, you mentioned ups and downs, right, of the season. Ryan Tice, this being his first season with the Gators. Gators dropping out of the poll for the first time since 1991. If you guys had to define this season, how would you do it? Starting with you, Jelianis.
I would say, just defeating the odds. You know, that's been the biggest thing, just defeating the odds. How can you maintain yourself in just locked into, buy into what Ryan Thies is trying to do with this team? And I think it's just really just been trying to defeat the odds. So I think if they are able to continue to buy into what he's bringing into the program and keep that underdog mentality, and at the end of the day, just maintain that core players that they currently have in this team, a couple pieces with, the portal and et cetera, I think they'll be able to really just bring it around. And this program is not going anywhere. This program will maintain its top status. And, but I think defying the odds is how I would describe this season.
Excellent. Charlie, how would you define the 2025 season for the Gators volleyball team?
You can't build a house before you lay the first brick. That is what this whole season has been about, right? You lost so many pieces in a legendary head coach, not only to the program, not only to the university, but to the sport itself. Mary Wise was a trailblazer for collegiate volleyball. To have her presence come away from the team is just as big of loss as losing half of your roster. She has such an influence on the team. Then you lose stars like Kennedy Martin. You really didn't know what was going to happen in Ryan Tice's first year at the helm. What is important to take away, despite the 15-11 record, despite not being seeded in the NCAA tournament, despite the shortcomings and the moments of triumph, there were flashes of this very young team that show that they have what needs to be done at this collegiate level, where everyone is so strong, and you're facing some of the best players in volleyball across the world right here in the NCAA. They showed that they deserve to be there. For a young team with players like Lily Hayes, first freshman to start as libero in almost 2 decades, with players like Milica Vidicic coming in from Serbia 2 weeks before the start of the season and really making her mark on the team, it gives me a lot of hope going forward. I think this is not indicative of what Gators volleyball will be in the future. I think it's just the start.
All right. Beautifully put, Charlie. And a great work from both you, Jelianis. Of course, Tori Kitchens, who you heard from earlier here. She doubled up the season on football and volleyball, but also contributes to volleyball coverage. Just all around, you guys certainly make a great team, and be sure to check out Charlie and Jelianis and Tori's coverage. Coming up, you have the preview, is that right, Charlie, for WRUF.com. We also have coverage of the first round matchup Friday as well, so be sure to check out WRUF.com. But just great season all around by you guys, and I would define it by a season of just hard work, teamwork, and just collaboration from all of you guys that has really made the coverage of Gators volleyball so impactful. And so looking forward to continuing or following your work moving forward into next semester. Jelianis, you're going to be on First at 5, and Noticias, Charlie, you're going to be on Sports Lab. Is that right?
Yeah.
So be sure to check out all their work on all of our platforms in this WRUF ecosystem. But thank you guys for everything this semester. All right. That'll do it for us, at least this segment on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. Charlie and Jelianis, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. And right now we're joined by a very special guest, Fitz Kohler. She's the CEO of Fitzness.com, a fitness expert, and has a new book out, You Supercharge, as well. We're here to have a conversation about everything fitness as it relates to men's health. And just pleasure to be joined by you, Fitz, and really interested in learning more about your journey, how you got here, how we got here, book. But first, let's start from step one. How did you start your own company, Fitzness?
Well, I started teaching fitness at 14 and fell in love with it and came up to UF. And so I'm a 2-time Gator grad. My master's is in exercise and sports sciences. While I was here learning and teaching at the rec center, I ended up teaching fitness all across the world. I think I taught in 20 different countries throughout college. I hosted a TV show, worked in radio, wrote articles, and just fell in love with mass media. As you know, right now we could be talking to millions, and that's very satisfying to me versus helping 1 or 50 people at a time. Connect me with as many people as humanly possible. And so I've built my career around mass media, just reaching out to a huge number of people to convince them, compel them, teach them, and often harass them to better health.
Now, why fitness? Were you an athlete growing up?
Yeah, I was. And up until, I'd say, a certain point, I was a very mediocre athlete. My family was great. My brother was an elite football and soccer player, and my sister was on scholarship playing soccer, and I just kind of like, womp, womp, wasn't very great. I had knee surgery. I wore a knee brace. In grad school, I started competitively kickboxing, full contact, and that's where I became a really talented athlete. I found I got in great shape. I increased my fine motor skills, and I became quite the all-star at kicking people in the head. And but I love sports. I want your audience to know that I've got a mean spiral, a really spiral. I can throw a football.
Is that right?
I like to call it a swirly. I throw a little girl lingo on it, so it's a swirly, not a spiral, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I love sports.
Awesome.
So much fun, right?
Absolutely, without question. And obviously, again, fitness part of that when it comes to sports. And so tell us about your new book that is currently out,
Yes.
You Supercharge. What's it all about?
Yeah, so You Supercharge, the exact formula for fitness, weight loss, and longevity. And this is over 400 pages packed with golden nuggets galore to help you understand how to get fit. I mean, there's so many folks out there who, maybe they were athletic in high school and then that kind of faded, and maybe they hung in there during college feeling good, but they're looking at themselves in the mirror saying, what the heck happened to me? And maybe they've got some love handles or a beer belly, or they have low energy and they're sleeping poorly. This is the everyman's guide to getting it all back. You can be leaner, you can be stronger, you can be more energetic. And 34 chapters ranging from nutrition, exercise to sleep, mental health, motivation versus discipline. Guys, motivation will get you to the start line. Discipline will get you to the finish line. So I cover everything. There's a particular chapter called Man Mode, written just for you, written just for your audience, because, guys, you have your own selection of challenges, and that followed by aging like a badass. I mean, it's all in there, and I want to be able to help everybody.
I feel like I could definitely benefit from this book. You mentioned those who were former athletes. I was a high athlete in high school, played football and basketball. I stayed active in my 20s, but now as I hit my mid-30s, I'm starting to lose that motivation. You talk about the difference between motivation and discipline. You talk about, again, the loss of energy and poor sleep. So what are some tips that I could potentially take away from this book?
Yeah, so we start at the start. You just got to start wherever you are. Don't compare yourself to the guy you were in high school. Start, right wherever you are is fine. And we're going to start you getting 1% better every day. You don't have to run a marathon next week. You just have to start moving the needle forward. When it comes to fitness, there are 4 pillars, and every single one of them is vital in your effort to become fit. So it's strength, cardiovascular fitness, flexibility, and balance. Balance is important so you don't fall down. And maybe in your 30s, 40s, you may not be tripping so much, but that'll pay off when you're 70 so you don't fall down. And gosh, how many people break a hip and die 3 days later? What a terrible way to go out, right? So those 4 pillars matter. And then the book has all the answers on frequency, intensity, time, and type. And so many people look at me and they say, well, I know how to do push-ups, but I don't know when and how hard and so forth. So I just try to keep it as simple, stupid possible. And then the exact formula for weight loss. Now, this is the deal. I will teach you how to eat the right amount of the right food for the size you specifically want to be. There is no one-size-fits-all formula. There are no diets, no pills, no powders that work. It's all snake oil, so don't go to that. But when I teach the exact formula loss, which is basically your specific caloric budget, women hear it and they go, oh, but it's fried. Oh, but it's this. And the women make all these excuses and their progress is much slower. Men, the exact formula for weight loss, and they go, oh, it can't be that simple. And I go, yeah, it is. And they go, okay, well, I can do that. And men, you inherently are good at following instructions. If you have a specific plan, man, you're so good being able to stick with it. That's a real strength for your gender. So, yeah, if you want to lose weight, I can help. And again, no snake oil, no gimmicks, no diets, just you learning to eat the right amount of the right food for the size you want to be.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned, start where you are.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm new to Gainesville. I just moved
Welcome.
in August and started teaching here at the University of Florida. And one of the first things I did was sign up for a gym membership.
Love.
However,
Okay.
I've only been 4 times in the past 4 months. And so when it comes to just finding that motivation to get into the gym, what are some of the tips and advice that you provide your readers in actually starting where you are and staying consistent with the workouts, eating right, working out, exercising, things of that nature? How do you get over that hurdle?
Yeah, so again, even if you start to think, I'm not motivated, well, who cares if you're motivated? If you want to get somewhere, you got to go, right? So you start by knowing what you want to achieve. That's chapter 2. Who do you want to be? You decide, I would like a smaller waistline, stronger shoulders, more stamina. I would like to be more flexible, less back pain. You have to decide where it is you're going, and then you create a plan using my guidance on how to get there. So you don't get in your car and say, hey, Surrey, take me somewhere. Surrey says, loon, I don't know what that means. You have to give specific directions. And so the book will allow you to construct that plan, and then it's going to be on you to stick with it. Now, I have provided, along with the books, if people buy them from me, these little Fitzy stickers, so you can put on the back of your phone or your computer or your refrigerator, where I poke you in the chest and remind you. But
Awesome.
I like to be the encourager. I wish I could be on your shoulder all the time, and I encourage my audience, take me with you. Let me shout in your ear whenever you're going to make a bad decision, or encourage you to make the better decisions. But yeah, there's got to be you stepping up to the plate, taking a swing, and if you miss, you swing again and you swing again.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people buy the book?
Well, Amazon is everywhere, right? So the books are selling hot in Germany right now. Thanks, Amazon. However, if folks want signed books, they want the little free gift with purchase, come straight to fitsness.com. That's FITZ as in zebra, NESS.com. All of those books are personalized. I do have free shipping discounts. And again, they make great gifts for the holidays.
Now, you wear many hats in your roles, not
Yeah.
only an author, but also a race announcer,
Yep.
obviously a fitness expert as well. What would you say is a success story in all the work that you've done?
Probably just being able to encourage the massive amount of people. I mean, millions and millions I've been able to connect with and either guide them or cheer for them when they've done something well. On race day, for example, I want everybody, all the Republicans and the Democrats and the independents and the commies, I want everybody to exercise, right? So on race day, sometimes a race organizer says, Fitz, here's 30,000 people that want to exercise today. Make sure they know what to do, where to go, and have a great time. And so the privilege of making their athletic adventure a wonderful experience and making sure they feel welcome, wanted, celebrated, it takes my breath away. And I love the elite athletes. I mean, wow, someone can do a marathon in 2 hours and 15 minutes. You're going to get all the praise that I could deliver. I'll give you a champion's welcome. But the further we get into the finish line, those 7-hour marathon runners, the one who maybe they have no legs or they're morbidly obese or they just, this is their first. It's such a privilege to fawn all over these people that have no quit. Their mind was telling them for 26 miles that, please stop, your knees hurt, please stop, give up. And they said, no, I'm going to keep going. And I respect not much more than that.
Is there one story that stands out to you, a particular, maybe a runner or maybe someone who's worked out? There's like one story that touches your heart.
I got a good man named Michael Jones, who I met at Disney World in a bakery over 10 years old. And so or 10 years ago. So Michael was so insecure, and he knew who I was, so he introduced himself, and we talked a little about fitness. I taught him the exact formula for weight loss, and he was like, well, I think I can do that. I said, of course you can do that. So he followed me, and this was a man who he apologized for every move he made. I'm sorry, I'm reaching out. I'm sorry. He just was a doormat, absolute doormat, and heart of gold, but yikes. And so as he's progressed with fitness and weight loss, he's lost almost 100 pounds. He's kept it off.
Wow.
And he is now a vice president of a massive healthcare company. He's a big dog who's very confident, and he's really turned his world around. And so about a year or so, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, which is tragic. However, Parkinson's has had a slower effect on him because he's so fit now. You know, if you're an unfit person, you get hit by a car or you come down with a disease, man, the regression goes really quick, right? So he was prepared for a crisis. And then when it came, he's been able to fend off those symptoms. However, he's just qualified for 2 clinical trials, not just 1, but 2. He's about 50, and his doctor said, listen, if you were not so fit, you wouldn't have even qualified for 1. But because you are so strong right now, we're going to allow you to do these 2 brain stimulators that are going to knock out all of his Parkinson's symptoms. And so we met in a bakery 10 years ago. He had no idea he was eventually going to be diagnosed with Parkinson's, but because he committed back then, he made the changes. He's living this great life. His income can support his needs. Now he's ready to beat the hell out of Parkinson's because he took care of his body. So we never know what's going to come around the corners, right? I had cancer 5-6 years ago, and I didn't like that, but my fitness certainly helped me through it. And so I hope all your listeners, they prepare their bodies to do battle today.
Absolutely.
And they'll be ready whenever anything comes their way that's not so fun.
Without question. That's a powerful message. Now, you have the book out now. Anything else coming up on your schedule?
Oh, everything coming up. I will be in 30 locations around America next year announcing races and keynote speaking. I love going out and bossing people around in person. Yeah, I've got a whole tour of bossing people around, Shamar.
I love it. And it's for those who want to follow where you'll be bossing people around, where can they find your work and also your schedule for your speaking engagements?
Yeah, of course. It's fitsness.com is my home base for everything. Again, FITZNESS.com. But I'm also at Fitsness on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. And folks, if you follow, I promise quality content in return. But I'd much rather have friends than followers, especially Gator fans. So when you follow, please use the message system and say, hello, I heard you on Shamar's podcast or Shamar's show, and then we could be besties. Why not?
Absolutely. Well, Fitz, Kohler, I want to thank you so much for coming on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. I know you were on with Jeremy St. Louis just before this as he comes in, but I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your time, and be sure to check out You Supercharged. Be sure to check that out on Amazon and buy the book and get some fitness tips as well. So, Fitz, thank you so much.
Thanks, and go Gators.
We're back here on This Week in Gator Sports Overtime, and right now we are joined by Noah White. His role for WRUF is sports coordinator, but he's a man of many roles, including working for the Miami Herald and covering the University of Florida athletics. We are thrilled to be joined by Noah, who was in Durham earlier this week for the big-time game between the Florida men's basketball team and the Duke men's basketball team. You were in the house at Cameron Indoor. Noah, tell us about the environment. How was it?
Well, I'm happy to be on. It was insane. I mean, it was the best away environment Florida has played in almost a decade at least. I mean, the last time they played a top 10 team on the road was in 2015 against Michigan State. But I mean, Duke in its own right is probably the best environment in college basketball, and they packed that thing in on Tuesday. I mean, it was a blackout game. They had the black uniforms uniforms. They had all their little students, padded into the wooden benches thing.
Some of those students were hitting you.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. I mean, they have like the media row is just like backed into the student section essentially. Wow. They're like leaning over top of you during the game, reaching out. And when Duke's playing well, they're leaning over top of you even more. And Duke played pretty well as the game went along.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about that environment and how it impacted the play of the Gators, it was unfortunately a loss for the Gators as they fell to 5-3 overall on the season. From that loss, it was a final of 67-66, but a thriller. Went down to the wire.
Yep.
How did it play out, and how did the environment, you think, impacted the Gators in that game?
Well, the environment definitely impacted Florida. You could kind of tell that at times they were discombobulated, disjointed, and I mean, Florida's looked like that throughout this season. That's not necessarily a surprise, but, Duke has a strong team, and when at home, it's even stronger. But the game itself was very competitive, and Florida held up pretty well, in all honesty, under the environment. It looked early in the first half like it was getting to them, between Duke, just in its own right, they have a well-rounded roster this season, but Florida got down like 12 early in the first half. They were down by 15 right around the break, and they pulled back as the game went along. They showed a lot of resolve that they hadn't really shown in games this season. Their shooting percentages jumped a little bit in the second half. They were just a lot slower, in all honesty. They weren't pushing the pace nearly as much as they were in the first half, and I think that kind of helped them overcome, this environment that was pushing down on them.
You talk about Duke, obviously one of the top programs this year in college basketball. You feel the Gators found a little inspiration, despite the loss, from the 1-point defeat.
Yeah, no, in all honesty, I think this should be somewhat inspirational because Florida looked better than it had in any other game despite it being a loss, especially in that second half. They found a rotation that was working down the stretch. They trimmed everything down to just 7 men the whole game, and really essentially 5 in like the last 10 minutes or so in the second half. It was very organized. Their spacing was a little better than it has been throughout the season. I mean, they've been trotting out this 3-big lineup, which has had its flaws at times, and still did against Duke for that matter. But everything just looked a lot more organized down the stretch. They were getting better shots. They weren't. First half, there was a lot of instances in which you're coming down, shot clock's down 3 to 5 seconds, and you got Xavier Lee just chucking something from places he probably shouldn't be. And it looked a lot more organized, which is how you end up, losing by 1 on essentially a game-winning shot.
Right.
It's a top-5 team.
Now, it's not easy for any team to lose 3 NBA players in one offseason, and that's what the Gators are facing. And as you have looked at Todd Golden and his shifting of lineups and incorporating new pieces into that lineup, it seems like the Gators are still very much looking to find that cohesive group.
Yep.
Do you think that with this loss against Duke and moving forward at this point in the season, 8 games in, the Gators are starting to find that rhythm and starting to find that rotation that will work and lead to success?
It seems like they're at least finding a starting 5 that works together. They've been trotting out Xavier Lee for the longest time in their starting lineup. They still did against Duke. They probably will again against UConn next week. But they found a group of 5 with Xavier out and Urban Kozar in that felt like it kind of worked together better. Urban's been their best 3-point shooter all year, and that is one of the places they've struggled. So there is an emphasis to kind of get him more touches and on the court a little bit more. In that group of 5 with him and Boogie and then the main 3 forwards, felt like it worked a little better together down the stretch, albeit though they do have a little bit of a depth problem in some ways because 7 guys is going to cost you against teams like Duke and UConn earlier in the season, maybe not as much in the NCAA tournament. Point being, though, subbing Zane out has helped them over time here because Xavier struggled mightily this season. I mean, I believe in the last 6 games, he's scored less than 10 points, 5 of them, and he shot 16% or worse from the field in all 5 of those games, which is you can't really even play someone at that clip in the SEC.
I was going to say, like, what's going on with Xavier? Because coming into the season, coming out of Princeton, there was all this chatter around Xavier Lee and what he's going to bring to this Gators offense, and we just haven't seen it. Noah, what's happening?
Well, it's a mix of things. He looks a little out of place, in all honesty. This happens with mid-major guards transferring up to Power 4 teams, especially Power 4 teams that are entering the season top 5 in the nation. And with the non-conference schedule that Florida has, because it's not doing him any favors to play teams like Duke over and over again.
Right.
But shot selection is really porous at the moment. That's the number one thing. I mean, there's this developing phenomenon in Gainesville that when Xavier Lee rises for a 3, everyone holds their breath. I mean, like, this isn't – you can't – he's taking shots that he probably shouldn't be taking. He's taking a ton of them, for that matter, as well. He has the highest usage rate on the team and the second highest total shot total this year. So he has to find better spots. Golden has emphasized over and over and over again that he's pretty confident in Xavier and what he brings to the table in his shooting ability. And he was a 36% three-point shooter at Princeton last season, I believe. But we're not seeing much of that this year. And to some senses, that's because he's taking worse shots than he even was at Princeton because he's not getting to the same spots he was at Princeton.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about it from an individual standpoint, but also from a team standpoint. This team clearly has some issues that they need to sort out when it comes to shooting overall as a team from behind the arc, and then also turnovers.
Yeah. No, the loss against Duke was inspirational in some sense because you lost by 1 point to a top 5 team, no matter these issues, but the issues are still there. Like you said, they're shooting poorly. They're shooting especially bad from beyond the arc. I believe we're at 25% against Duke, 27% on the season, which are not clips you're going to see from a team that's in the top 25 come like early January, and I would expect them to continue to kind of fall here over the next couple of weeks. But they're also turning the ball over like crazy. They had 13 against Duke, which was one more than the Blue Devils, and a night that Duke looked more disjointed to Florida to some extent as it went along. They're averaging 14.4 a game, though, and that is bottom 60 in the nation or so, which is unheard of for a preseason top 3 team. There hasn't been a preseason top 3 team since the 1980s that has had that rate through a month of the year. So we're still having the same problems kind of persist, even when you have losses like this. And again, playing teams like Duke and then UConn in a week are not going to help improve that.
Some other issues there. The front court, again, supposed to be the strong point of this Gators team entering the season, has not panned out that way, particularly against stronger competition. What's happening with our front court?
Well, it's a mix of things. They're definitely rebounding as well as anyone would have expected them to. I mean, if you're starting 3 guys who are 6'8 plus, you should rebound. So if that wasn't working, we'd be in a whole different place at this point in time. They're tipping the ball out a ton. I think they out-rebounded Duke by like 9 or 10. I don't remember the exact number, but they're rebounding well. Their issue is the defensive side of things. They're finding that they're themselves in a lot of spacing problems over time. Duke brought those out to the fullest extent we've seen this year. I mean, Cam Boozer, obviously one of the most talented players in the nation, probably the prohibitive National Player of the Year favorite at this moment in time. But his ability to shoot the 3 but also drive made Rubin especially have to get pulled out to the 3-point line, and he, God bless him, looks lost out there when you get him that close to the perimeter. So Florida's finding that they're having a little bit of a spacing issue with those 3 forwards in that Alex and Rubin really struggle to guard outside. And while there are tons of teams in college basketball that are playing larger lineups this year, I believe 15 of the top 25 teams have 3 6'8" starters or taller. All of them are starting taller players who can shoot, and Florida is not. All 3 of those guys who are starting in Florida's front court are 30% or so or worse 3-point shooters, and they can't really guard the perimeter either. So you keep finding them brought out there, and this is a persisting issue because, I mean, as we've seen in each of those 3 losses, it has been an opposing forward who's been able to kind of spread them out a little bit more, whether that be Koa-Pete or Cam or Punch for TCU. They're taking advantage of Florida from a distance because Florida can't guard.
Yeah, without question. Now, let's look ahead. Next up for the Gators, UConn. Of course, UConn, the number 5 team in the country. Tough stretch here for the Gators, back-to-back against Duke. Now in New York at Madison Square Garden, at the Garden. I don't know, you going to that one? Or
yes, I am.
You'll be there for the Miami Herald. What do you predict in that matchup?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of the same from the Duke game go into that game. UConn, similar to Duke with Boozer, maybe not to the same level, has Alex Caravan at their 4 right now, and he's shooting 45% from 3, so they're going to keep spreading them out. I mean, UConn as a team is not shooting all that well from the perimeter, but they're not afraid to keep shooting them by any means, and I think that you'll see Florida have kind of those same issues with its ability to space itself out as it did against Duke with UConn in a week from now. The Huskies are a little deeper than Duke was as well, in all honesty, and definitely deeper than Florida is, given Florida's current lineup struggles. And so I'd imagine that'll kind of get drawn out, especially over time in that game, because if Florida finds anyone in foul trouble, UConn will be able to take advantage just because of that depth. But ultimately, to an extent, too, this is what Golden wanted. He's been clear the whole time that the best way to get his team prepared for SEC play, especially with the roster turnover it has, like you mentioned, they lost 3 NBA draft picks from last season, was to test them early in the year. And you do that by playing teams like Duke on the road and UConn in a road-adjacent environment. I mean, they're going to travel well to MSG. So I'd imagine it'll be another competitive game. I think Florida has enough talent overarchingly, especially in its front court, to keep up with UConn, which isn't necessarily a high-scoring team. But it feels like UConn's depth, and especially its depth around the perimeter, is going to draw something out of Florida that it didn't have against Duke and probably isn't going to have found in a week.
You mentioned these early season tests, Noah, and for me, when I look at the way that they have matched up, not only against some of the premier competition, but then you also look at that loss against TCU, right? And you look at some of these tests. I'm concerned. I am concerned. I feel this is an average team.
Yeah.
I feel that, of course, again, it's hard to replace 3 NBA players in one offseason, but I don't see this Gators team going far in the NCAA tournament whatsoever.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
I don't disagree with you either. I think they're very similar to UConn last year, which I'm not sure if that's a comparison that will hit for everyone listening. But UConn entered the season last year as a top 3 team. That was really built on the fact that it was bringing back a lot of its front court. This was probably like your 4th, 5th, and 6th highest scorers from their championship team a year before. And you were thinking those guys are going to take a jump. The transfers in are going to add a little bit of juice that those returners weren't going to have. And therefore you were just going to maintain because you have a great coach. And then if all those pieces combined, you're going to have a good team again. But Florida looks very similar to UConn did in the sense that UConn struggled heavily early in the season. By the middle of December, they were in and out of the top 25 and then remained that way for the rest of the year until Florida beat them in the second round of the NCAA tournament. It was a competitive game. UConn had a lot of talent. Florida has a lot of talent this year. But I think this is a similar team to that in the sense that their cap is probably a 5 or 6 seed. They don't have the talent level and especially the cohesiveness of a top 3 seed team at this moment in time. Yeah. And I would imagine that as the season goes along, you'll see some of the cohesive aspect, the team parts improve, but the talent never is going to ultimately. And if you can't shoot, which there's no reason to think this roster could shoot necessarily, that's not going to change.
Yeah, not at all. All right, let's wrap up here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. We're here with Noah White, our WRUF sports coordinator, Miami Herald beat reporter for University of Florida Athletics. Let's just call it. Let's look at next Tuesday against UConn. What's your prediction? Who wins?
UConn wins, I would think something like 74-67.
Why?
UConn's just deeper. Like I said, I mean they're going to shoot better. Caravan, I would imagine, is going to have a massive day with Alex out there chasing him around. And that depth at the end of the day, Braylon Mullins coming back, while Florida's still searching for who is truly going to be in their starting lineup, is just going to press a Florida defense that can't hold up.
All right. That's Noah White joining us here on This Week in Gators Sports Overtime. He is being subbed in. Of course, we will be joined by a brand new Gators men's basketball B team with Jesse Bratman, Caroline King, and Riley Orovitz. But Noah, thank you so much for stepping in. And hopefully, just glad you made it back safely from Cameron Indoor and all those Cameron crazies. Glad you made it back in one piece. Thanks for joining us here on Twigs OT.
Thank you.